So brothers, let's talk. Let's talk about the many times that you have potentially compromised yourself in order to purely facilitate the capture of vagina. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more honest and transparent in this video about the times in which I have gotten myself into situations which I am maybe less than proud of, is a way to describe it. And in that way, compromise my morals, my judgment in order to facilitate the means to my own pleasure. There was an occasion more recently that I'll discuss towards the latter end in the video, which I believe is the correct way to mediate the boundaries between meeting a woman for the first time and screening. This is a skill that I want you gentlemen to become better at, is screening women, because many women are of the opinion, and this is a certain type of woman, that she is going to be attractive, she is going to be a suitor for any single man. And it is typically these women who create these TikTok videos who complain about coffee dates as a first date. You see this all the time. I think I watched one recently where this woman was talking about let's say the investment that a man is showing lack of when he proposes a coffee date for the first time. So she's all done up, she's wearing her Dolce & Gabbana, she's wearing her Dior, she's showing off her nails and her shoes, and she's kind of tallying it up in the corner of the screen going, my manicure cost this much, my purse cost this much, my outfit cost this much, my foundation, my mascara, the videos that I'm talking about. And then she goes, and you can't afford, a $5 coffee, or whatever the case may be. You're proposing that a $5 coffee is acceptable in your eyes if I'm bringing all of this to the table? Of course it's not. Just say you're broke. Just say you're broke. That's not what we're trying to demonstrate. A coffee date is, in my opinion, probably the best screening tool to signal to yourself if a more highbrow date, such as going to a nice restaurant or maybe going for drinks, or I would say drinks is another great screening date, in order to ascertain if this woman shares enough morals, values, virtues, and a temperament that is going to be favorable to you making a solid commitment to make this woman your girlfriend or your wife. And most sensible women understand that. It's a screening tool. It's for you to sit down face to face opposite the other person, ask specific questions to let you know, are you actually worth me taking you to a nice restaurant? I've got the money. Believe me, I've got the money. I can invest in you. But why am I going to waste my time, waste my money, waste my energy and my efforts on bringing you to a fancy restaurant the first date, be stuck with a $200 bill at the end of it, after paying for your drinks all night, after paying for your food and anything else you want, to find out that you're subpar. You're subpar. You're not the woman that I want to even consider as my girlfriend or the mother of my children. And this is the reaction that you would make. And don't make my mistake, because I've done that. I've been midway through like a dinner date, and a dinner date is very intense, first and foremost. Been midway through a dinner date, and the starters haven't even finished, and she's picked up her phone several times. She's got an attitude. Her temperament is generally unfavorable to one that I would consider being, my wife or girlfriend. And I'm going, I want to stop the date here. I want to stop the date here. And unfortunately, I didn't have the presence of mind in going, you know what? I'm enjoying, well, I can't even lie. I'm not enjoying your company. I think we should leave the date here before we go into mains, because I already know that I'm not going to ask you on a second date. It's not going to happen, because in the short amount of time that, otherwise you wouldn't have the information to demonstrate, or her to demonstrate that she is a good person. Because text, you can lie, you can kind of gloss it up. And most women, and they won't admit this, will use another man as a means to get a free meal. They want to be seen as attractive. They want the attention. So a coffee day is a tremendous screening tool, or drinks. I mean, you can stretch the drinks. Drinks will be a little bit more expensive. But again, if that's within your budget, maybe you consider that as a screening tool in order to ascertain, is this woman worth pursuing? Now, talking more specifically about the topic of the video, I mean, it's all interrelated about this notion that you can compromise your judgments, your values, your virtues in order to facilitate you ascertaining access to vagina and pleasure. This happened more at university for me, but there was many occasions where I'd seen multiple red flags. But purely because she was demonstrating some kind of sexual interest, you forego those red flags. You take her out on the dates, you spend money, and I mean, either you get vagina or you don't get vagina in those circumstances. She's not going to be your wife, she's not going to be your girlfriend, and that kind of fruitless pursuit is empty, is meaningless, will drain your energy, will corrupt and dilute your perspective of modern women, and waste your sexual energy in that way. So again, there's been many occasions in university where, I'm trying to think of one specifically, whereby she was the kind of social butterfly going from man to man, and it seemed like this individual had a whole roster of different men that she would be having in her Instagram stories, in a Snapchat. You know the kind of woman that I'm talking about here. There is a more colloquial term that is not polite in the slightest. But you compromise yourself for the means to purely pursue that sexual gratification. I've done it on Tinder. You're matching with women who, on that very kind of surface level self-description they give on their profile, is not going to be a good match to you. But you'll forego that in order to pursue the carnal pleasures, which is, her only value at that time. Fast forward to now, I actually had a recent encounter with somebody that I met through a freelance opportunity, and we hit it off. A lot of good morals, good values, good virtues. On paper, seemed like a very, very good fit. And I remember it got to a time where we did the coffee date, we did the low investment, as I would call it, and she kind of slipped and said that she had previously broken up with a friends with benefits situation. And I think she could tell, but my whole kind of demeanor when she mentioned that just changed. It was really, really sad, because this woman presented herself to be a very kind of morally virtuous individual. She was religious and very modest in terms of how she kind of showed herself to the world. She didn't show a lot of skin. Very actually elegant. And on the surface, this is a scary thing, because there's a difference between how a woman markets herself and how she actually is. And she was talking about, I was excited to go on this date with you. I decided to break things off with my friends of benefit situations because, I want to be open. I want to be honest about the kind of man that I'm dating, and I don't think that's right. I mean, credit to her actually mentioning that, because otherwise I wouldn't have that kind of information. But I was kind of asking questions about, how that arrangement came up, and she was, very much of the opinion, well, men and women have needs, and I needed somebody to meet that need. There was nothing more deep in that particular relationship other than the fact that we smashed our genitals together, once or twice every week. And I was just overcome with this emotion of disgust. That kind of disgust reflex is a reflex that has developed over time, which is consistent with, disease, and is used to protect you from, infection and ill health. That's actually where that reflex comes from. A lot of men or a lot of women are misunderstanding, why they would find that unattractive in a partner. And I think for men as well, men who sleep with a woman every kind of weekend will have, chlamydia, if they're lucky. I mean, they'll have conditions which are far more gruesome than that. So the conversation started to go a little bit stale from my end. My interest was pretty much nil from that point. We did have a kiss and a cuddle. No more illicit or invasive sexual relations beyond that. But I'm even disappointed in that. I'm even disappointed it got to the place we were sharing, what would you call it, surface level intimacy. Because I knew this woman, I didn't want to lead this woman on. And I basically said that we weren't sexually compatible, and that I personally didn't agree with this idea that sexual needs is an idea that needs to be satisfied outside the context of a relationship, because that sullies the sacredness of sexual relationships. Like it cheapens it, doesn't it? If you have somebody who is constantly feeling that their needs need to be met in a sexual dimension, then they're going to find anybody to fill that hole. Pardon that very crude image there. But if I took myself from 4 or 5 years ago, my perspective would have, I would have overlooked that for the sake of, well, this is an individual who treats sex as a kind of like a transactional thing. It's very, very cheap in nature. It's going to be very, very easily for me to meet my sexual needs or gratify myself with this individual because they're already doing it outside the confines of a relationship. I mean, that's one of the key kind of pillars of a relationship, isn't it? Intimacy. You take a man and a woman who have a good friendship together, or let's take it the other way. You take a man and a woman who have a sexual relationship who are boyfriend and girlfriend, but you take away the sexual dimension, it's just a good friendship. It's just a very, very good friendship with the inclusion of some cuddles and some kisses from time to time. The intimacy aspect, the exclusivity of the relationship is predicated on the fact that the other person is not sharing that aspect of them with somebody else. And that tells me a lot about the morals, values and virtues a person places upon a relationship. If that aspect of cheap, if they don't have or place any value on that, then equally I think you can make the idea that the exclusivity of the relationship has been compromised even before you start to pursue that. And that is a very heartbreaking thing. So, I hope that this message starts to penetrate the mind of men who are, and women as well equally, into the dating arena. You have a certain standard that needs to be met by her modesty and her perspective on sex and intimate relationships that are consistent with yours. And if she doesn't share that, is there any means pursuing it? And the answer is typically going to be no. And there are women out there like this. I have a good friend of mine who was actually just FaceTiming the other day, and she was telling me that she hadn't had sex for 2 years, and what's wrong with her. And the conversation started to go down this vein. Well, you've kind of been there and done that, haven't you? I think as much as I would like to believe most men and women would be a little bit more selective about who they have sex with, and virginity is actually something to be celebrated as opposed to it being or making you this kind of social pariah, or I can't believe you haven't lost your virginity yet. But it's not. Most people will say they're going through a dry spell, or they need sex. They need to validate themselves to make sure that they still have sexual gain in that respect. It's something that I worry about from time to time, especially if I go a long period of time with not having sex with a woman. That kind of thought starts to creep in your mind. Or maybe you're not successful with women. Maybe maybe there's a certain shame you should be feeling because you haven't had sex with somebody in the last 6 months. Maybe you're losing your game. Maybe you need to quickly have sex with somebody, compromise your morals for the sake of saying, oh no, that I can have sex. I had a wobble at that very, very recently. I went probably about 6 to 9 months without having sex with anyone, and that kind of thought process started to creep up in my mind. Well, Joseph, maybe the reason why is because you're not good with women, or you can't get a woman. And then I remember that kind of week to 2 weeks where I had that wobble. I started to, let's say, be a bit more active in my pursuit of women and sex in that regard. And I got myself in a situation where, there's a lot of men where where you get to a place when you're talking with somebody that sex is an option for you. And you get in that place and I kind of had that out-of-body experience, and I go, well, no, my thought process before that was incorrect. I can have sex with a woman if I have the intention to go out and do that. I'm not going to say it's not difficult, depending on obviously the kind of woman that you choose to pursue. But I think a lot of men will delude themselves into thinking that, or make themselves insecure into thinking that if I go for a long period of time without having sex, that you lose your capacity to be able to attract a woman and have sex. It's not true. It's not true. Especially if you've been sexually successful in the past. I like to think of it as like a mating season, or let's say a season where you are actually pursuing a girlfriend or a wife. I can happily say now that the season I'm in is more kind of business and entrepreneurial related, and pursuing a woman isn't necessarily at the forefront of my agenda. I will make, what would you say, compromises if a really special kind of woman manifests herself in my environment. If she's got the same morals as me, the same values as me, the same virtues as me, you kind of have to take the moment while the fruit is in season, so to speak, and you go, well, this is a very unique situation I'm in at the moment, and I have to act on what the universe is gifting me at this time. But I'm not putting myself into situations where I'm trying to force it. I'm not actively pursuing women. I'm not going out and cold approaching, on the streets. I'm not on Tinder. I'm not on Bumble. I'm not on Hinge. I'm not actively looking for another partner. But there's many men who would find, shame in that particular season. You don't have to be looking for a girlfriend or a wife as soon as you become single. Sometimes you need those long periods by yourself to actually come to grips with your life management. And then after you've got fairly consistent in your life management, maybe your weekly routine, when you have free time, you recognize, things are going very well with my business. I've got a lot of disposable income. I actually think having a girlfriend would complement my lifestyle at the moment. However, for some men, you recognize, no, I need to get my money up, I need to get my business in order, I need to work on my social situation before I even think about pursuing a woman. But there are many men, and I would say maybe a larger amount of women, who believe that they always need to be with somebody, or at least having sex with somebody. And that is such a drain on your assets, on your time, on your energy. If it's the wrong person, of course, if it's the right person, it would be a worthy investment of your time, of your energy, of your finances. But I think there should become, and I hope this video is the instigator, is the catalyst for you to share this with your brothers, share this with women as well, that there's no shame in taking a hiatus from dating, from relationships, and also sex, to kind of get your lifestyle in order, get your management in order, and then you can kind of pursue a woman when you're ready with the right attitude, and you can be a little bit more, or a lot more, picky isn't the right word, but exercise a higher degree of discernment in terms of the kind of woman that you want. Because if you're in the former mind frame like myself, then you're going to compromise on your values. So for this particular woman that I was just mentioning, she compromised my values. She compromised the value in which I don't wish to see in my future partner. And you can imagine how that complicates issues if the right woman comes along and you're sleeping with you're sleeping with somebody who you don't value or can't see in that regard. You kind of feel a little bit of guilt. A lot of men will kind of hide that and make the fact that, well, no, I'm not in a relationship and I'm not cheating on my significant other. It makes things far more complicated than it needs to be. So gentlemen, I hope this video was valuable to you in order to kind of frame your temperament in relation to dating and sex, and the season that you're particularly in. I mean, I'd be interested to know, what season are you in right now? What season are you in? If you find the right woman, you can kind of build together your empire. Or maybe you're in that season where you're building your empire by yourself, and that woman kind of complements your lifestyle. Anyway, these aren't theories, these are facts. Speak soon.